All right, let's dive right in. We're going to be talking about a drawing application that's trying to do something pretty revolutionary for vector art. It's called Arttista, and it's making a really bold promise to give those clean, perfect vectors something they've desperately needed: a soul. Look, if you're a digital artist, you have totally been here before, right? On one side, you've got the awesome, expressive freedom of raster drawing, think Photoshop or Procreate. But on the other, you need the clean, infinitely scalable lines of vector art you get in programs like Illustrator. It always feels like this constant battle between organic feel and technical perfection. And here's that trade-off in a nutshell. Vectors, they're amazing for logos and graphics. You can blow them up to the size of a billboard and they stay perfectly crisp. But man, they can feel so sterile and stiff sometimes. Then you've got your raster art. It's painterly, it's full of texture and life. But the second you try to scale it up, you're just lost in a sea of pixels. But what if you didn't have to choose? What if you could have the best of both worlds? Well, this is exactly where Arttista steps in. It's trying to build a bridge between these two, and they're calling it the organic vector. So the whole idea behind Arttista is to make your vector drawings feel as alive and natural as if you'd painted them on a canvas. The goal is to let you, the artist, just focus on being expressive, creating characters and worlds that feel like they're breathing, while the software does all the heavy lifting with the vector math behind the scenes. That's a really cool pitch, right? But how does it actually work? How does Arttista manage to make vectors feel real? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the tools that actually make this happen. This quote right here, it basically sums up the entire philosophy of the app. It's all about getting that intuitive, free-flowing feeling of just drawing, but with all the incredible, non-destructive, infinitely editable power that vectors give you. It all starts with the brushes. You can make your own, load them up with all sorts of unique textures, and just paint away like you would in any raster program. But, and here's the magic, every single stroke, no matter how painterly it looks, is actually stored as fully editable vector data. So you get these beautiful organic effects without sacrificing any of that scalability. It's kind of nuts. And it's the same story with the pen tools. Whether you're carefully placing down precise anchor points or you're just sketching freehand, you can bake textures and dynamics right into your lines. This is how you get that slightly imperfect, truly human, hand-drawn quality that really makes art pop. And then you've got the eraser, which is a total game changer. You know how in most vector apps, erasing feels weird and technical, like you're just deleting points? Well, Artista's eraser actually behaves like a real one. You can organically carve away at your shapes, create these soft, textured edges, all while the vector data underneath stays perfectly clean. It's a creative tool, not just a delete button. Now, the secret sauce that makes all of this work is a feature called dynamics. Okay, think of it like this. On a single vector line, you can have individual points that have different sizes, different colors, different opacities. So instead of needing a dozen different objects to get some variation, you just edit the points along one single path. That's how you get that subtle, hand-drawn vibe without all the hassle. But this whole organic vector thing isn't just for still images. Oh no. Arttista takes it to the next level, right into the world of animation. Because every single part of your drawing is already a super flexible vector, that really tedious process of frame-by-frame animation suddenly gets a whole lot easier. You can draw your first pose, and then for the next frame, you just grab the control points and adjust it. The timeline tools make managing everything really simple, which streamlines the entire workflow. So, if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I'm intrigued, how do I try this thing out? We've got you covered. Here are the practical details. First off, it's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, which is awesome to see. You can find it on the Steam store, and here's a little pro tip for you. You can basically use Steam's 2-hour refund policy as a totally risk-free trial. If it doesn't click for you in that time, just get your money back. No harm, no foul. Now, you might be worried that a steep learning curve is going to eat up those 2 hours, right? Well, the developers make a very, very bold claim. And it all revolves around this number right here, 20. So, what's so special about 20? Yep, that's how many minutes they claim it takes to learn the absolute basics of Arttista. The whole point is to make the tools so intuitive that you can just blast past all the technical stuff and get right to what matters, creating. And that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? For any artist out there who has ever felt stuck between the cold precision of vectors and the messy limitations of raster art, Arttista presents a really fascinating new path. Of course, the only way to know if it's the right fit for you is to give it a shot. So, could this be the tool that finally bridges that gap in your creative process?